Welcome to the Meat and Potatoes podcast. We're here with Aniza Brown, who is the Executive Director of Catalyst Campus in Ogden. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You've been at Silicon Slopes a few times over the past month. Always delightful.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to talk a lot about the D.O.D, Air Force, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, and Catalyst Campus. It all kind of ties in. We'll have a little bit of fun with acronyms, but not too much.
No.
But let's talk a little bit about Catalyst Campus and then kind of weave in your background.
Yeah. Catalyst Campus is an innovation and collaboration modernization initiative to support the D.O.D. to ensure that they're modernizing and adopting technology faster than our adversaries. So what that means is we host accelerators. We have small businesses come to us and say, like, hey, we want to work with the D.O.D. They have a product. We help them engage the D.O.D. and identify whether or not it's a fit for the D.O.D. and then help them transition their products while maintaining their IP. Transition their products to the DoD in like licensing or whatever vehicles that they can get for a contract. In addition, we're nonprofit, so we don't charge the companies anything. We just want them to be successful. And with that, we do get like Microsoft or Northrop, Lockheed to come in and sponsor. So what that enables is for the small businesses to be able to go and fly in, pay for their hotels, pay for their food, or any miscellaneous fees associated with coming to the accelerator. So that's kind of what we do. We also have collision space where we sit with the DoD. We drive collaborative conversations. We host the beverage fueled ecosystem, which is an after-hours event where we drink root beer or beer and chat about innovative opportunities to collaborate. So we're kind of all over the place. I mean, we just got funding for the Rosie Collective, which I'm pretty stoked about. That will kind of change the way the DoD works. It's kind of nice. From the outside in, I've been able to do a lot more than I could from the inside up. So we're really engaging with the DoD to identify what are those gaps and how can we remove those gaps. Rosie Collective is utilizing military spouses, an unutilized resource, to put them into IT courses to get them certified. And after 6 months, day one, they start their internship opportunity with Hill Air Force Base.
Cool.
Their clearance starts day one, which takes a long time. And by the end of the 6 months, if they've gotten their certs, they go directly into working for Hill Air Force Base as an IT specialist.
Very cool. That's a pretty quick transformation.
Yeah. I'm
Very
like
cool.
a banshee with the stuff.
And so the clearance usually is like a big pain in the butt. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And you need it, though.
Yep.
For what you're describing.
Yep.
You don't want like greasy kids in their parents' basement that don't care about security and OPSEC and all of that to be writing the code, right?
Yeah. No malicious intent.
Yeah.
Maybe greasy, less greasy would be good.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a big industry, right? And the modern military is quite technical.
Yes.
Gone are the days where it is just brute force. It's pretty surgical and tactical.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a little bit it's easier where you are now to make change, but give us a quick rundown of your background that led you to this point.
Yeah, so I have a background in electrical engineering. I did a lot of software for Raytheon, moved over to Hill Air Force Base in the software engineering group, worked on F-16, a couple other platforms, and then ended up moving up working for the General and driving innovation and collaboration under a brand new office called the Corporate Transformation Office, where we would automate like menial tasks. You think of the hiring process at Hill. It takes 6 months to hire somebody. We were trying to remove those barriers through direct hire authority and enable faster hiring, building out our own websites, building out our own tools, progressive web apps, to ensure that we could make everything go faster and pull it out of maybe too embedded in the DoD. So there was a lot of oversight in hiring, but it came back to like San Antonio. And that was the center for hiring. And it's like, I want to do it here, and I want to do it faster, and I don't want to do it with bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the end result of hiring people more cleanly, faster, even a Luddite like me could figure out that like the changes will happen quicker, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially if you can get people in before somebody else picks them up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then immediately after Hill, I went over to Northrop for a little bit and then moved over to Catalyst Campus, which has been amazing.
Yeah. All right. So let me give you the quick example. It's the best one I know. Um, the Manhattan Project.
Hmm.
The U.S. military did not have the proper brains to do that. So they had to get scientists and physicists and all of that. I assume they made them employees, obviously background checks, all of that, J. Edgar Hoover. But the end result was success
Hmm.
in an atomic bomb. For a less complicated, quicker process, is it similar that there's all these good minds, good programmers, good coders that have an innovative product, or it could be an improvement on a product. You got to get them in somehow.
Yes.
Okay.
And
And
that's
that's where
exactly.
Catalyst Campus,
Yes. And that's why we're trying to lower the barrier of entry. I mean, if you were actually presented here about 5, 6 years ago, and people kept asking me, how do we get contracts with Hill? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's that's a beast in itself.
yeah,
And now to be able to, like, we just had an accelerator cohort to get companies in and then to get them MOUs, so memorandums of understanding, and ensuring that they had a path forward to contracts was huge. And then you have all these companies from across the nation coming to Utah, to Ogden, Utah, because they can support the largest modernization in the DoD. Like, everything's changing. And that's the big thing. I mean, you can move only as fast as your bureaucracy in the DoD, but small businesses, they don't have to put up with that. They can move as fast as they want. They can build out a product, and then you can go back and ensure that there's no malicious intent within their coding. You can do static analysis. You can identify what they need to mitigate to integrate into a system. So, like, into F-35, F-16, F-22, A-10, the ground-based strategic deterrent called Sentinel. So there's so many opportunities at Hill, but nobody knows about it because it's like the mystery behind the fence.
sure. So you have all these cool things that work well, but technology advances every day. And there's a lot of people on the outside of that fence,
Yep.
more than are inside. Um, are there any like non-classified examples, even if you want to make it up, of like, oh, this small engineering team had some technology that was a good fit? They might not, it might have been accidental, right? Like, oh,
Hmm.
this would work here. It was designed for here, but it would work here. In the olden days, it probably would have ended up on a shelf collecting dust, but
Yes.
we're able to now kind of integrate that quicker.
Yeah. So I feel like when I talk to people, I always have to step it back and be like, I don't care. Like, you have a product that does something. Well, what is the underlying ability of that? And so I was actually here last time talking to somebody, and we were talking about how they had this product that could go and pull from across the nation. You could literally pull tools or video games, whatever, from this one app. And I'm like, and you're pulling it from across the nation. Okay, there's an opportunity here that I know we have where when we tag out equipment, we may or may not get it back. There's a huge opportunity there. If we can utilize that underlying development to build it into something we need, I mean, it's massive. And it removes a huge barrier for us because it was developed outside the DoD. We'll integrate it into the DoD. But that's where the bureaucracy and what takes so long is once you get into the gate. So anything from outside the gate that we can truly run all of our analysis on and ensure that we can integrate it into a platform, we're going to do it. So that company got to speak to one of the DoD personnel here and was like in awe that there was actually a need. It wasn't just like me telling him there was a need. There's always a need. You think of a Hill Air Force Base. You think of they have their own hospital. They have their own golf course, bowling alley. Like, they are their own town.
Yeah.
So to integrate those into those environments, I mean, that's huge. And you think of something even bigger. Qualtrics, their data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, they have it down to a T, to the point that they can identify from a survey whether or not somebody's suicidal. That's huge, especially for the DoD. And to be able to tap into that and not have to recreate the wheel every time, I think that's where the DoD is going. They're trying to pick up modern capabilities from the outside and integrate them so we don't have to do it organically and then sustain it organically.
Yeah. And you mentioned accelerator and cohorts, boot camps, those types of things. Traditionally, like some equity might go to the accelerator, the people organizing, the people greasing the skids. It sounds like that's not the case with you guys.
No.
So you're helping, I think your little logo's like a rocket ship, or at least on LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
Making things go faster.
Yep.
And they don't lose, they don't get diluted.
Mm-mm.
And you also mentioned they get to keep their IP.
Mm-hmm.
So is that like a licensing model where
Mm-hmm.
if they get it right and it could just be mailbox money for a long time?
Yeah. It's insane, the opportunities that small businesses can have. And you see a ton of people from the DoD, the innovators specifically from the DoD, leaving the DoD because they see the value of adding it from the outside in, because it's so important to continue to push the boundaries of innovation within the DoD.
Yeah. And the DOD and the big bureaucracy, the Pentagon, I assume there is some kicking and biting and slowly going versus, oh, this is a great idea, let's run with it.
Yeah.
But that's what you're chipping away at, right?
Yep. And I think it really broke ground when Dr. Roper told one of our teams here he wanted us to fly with better software than we took off with. So that kind of mentality drove towards this innovation realm, towards changing the way we do business, and shook the foundation of what we knew, which was everything can't go over the air. Everything has to be like containerized in its own environment. And they just brought in a whole new world of we are not as far as we need to be. And we need you guys to think further, to think forward, not to think now. And that was a huge transition for the DoD. All of the memos that came out from that, ensuring that we had a zero trust security, that we were doing things appropriately and it made sense. Because before they would look at somebody and say, well, that person might have malicious intent. And it's like, no. Your software, your tools should mitigate malicious intent. It should catch it. It shouldn't be on the developer.
Yeah.
And you're opening a door. And that like number one way for hackers is usually from the inside out.
Yeah.
So it's like understanding how that works and then being like, okay, zero trust. We're going to move forward. We're going to continue to push the boundaries and ensure that we are identifying any issues ahead of time, even for small businesses. Their biggest thing is like, how do we get on a DoD platform?
Yeah.
And it's like ridiculous, but we're building out an environment, a dojo environment with our customers with AFRL, the Air Force Research Lab, to ensure that we can integrate small businesses into a DoD environment that's containerized, have them deploy their software, test it, break it, have them disconnect from the network like in a snowball, like Amazon snowballs, where they are actually truly not dependent on any code that's out in some server, that their software will work on a box.
Yeah.
So being able to introduce that and enable small businesses to have that access is huge.
Yeah. And what types of businesses are we talking about that would be good for Catalyst Campus or all of these programs overall?
So technical companies, and I would leave it at that. Anybody who has an application, who develops a tool, who may not truly think there's a platform in the DoD should engage and see if there is, because there may be an underlying capability that we would really want to integrate into the DoD.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So to paraphrase some of my older uncles, they work in computers. So if people work in computers and tech, that's good enough, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So a typical, like you guys had a demo day in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was 8 teams demoing.
Yep.
Did that start with more teams, or did you guys pick 8 from the beginning? How long did it last?
So we have an open, there's an open timeline where people can apply. After that, we go and pick companies. We started with 8, just because it was our first cohort, and it was just Jess, Reese, and I. So now, once we got to demo day, they all got MOUs, so memos of understanding. They were able to move forward with potential contracts. I mean, everything moved so quickly, but the biggest thing was during the accelerator, one of the days we brought in like F-16, F-22, F-35, A-10, and Sentinel customers, like developers, to come sit with the companies and walk them through what are the things that eat their lunch, like what's grinding their gears that day, and maybe there's a solution in the room that can resolve it. And it was really good conversation because even with that, the small businesses came and said, well, we need the data. If we had the data, this would be so much easier. And it's like, we have unclassified programs. Like, pull the data from the unclassified programs and let's go. Let's start developing and actually deploying something that was meaningful for the DoD.
Yeah.
So don't just shelve it. You need to get it to the warfighter.
Yeah. So it sounds like even if there is malicious intent, there's place guards to mitigate that. But even if there's not malicious intent and the code's just not up to par, it gets fixed before it's too late.
Yep. So a lot of times when we do our static analysis, it'll even identify ghost code. So dead code where people are just commenting sections of code out. Like, that should not be there. I mean, it will tell you exactly where you need to fix things and how you need, that you need to mitigate it. And it gives a small business the opportunity to not walk in the door and have a product that will never work for the DoD. So it's as ready to go as possible.
Yeah. And we're pretty familiar with the Navy and Army and Marine Corps and Coast Guard, but now there's
Space Force.
We're going up.
Yeah.
And last time I checked, that takes a little bit of technology,
Yes.
probably a little bit of science.
Yes.
Are you starting to see a shift
Yes.
into Space Force?
Yes. A lot of our active duty Air Force are moving over to Space Force as active Space Force or reserves. So we're seeing a huge movement. I mean, you think Space Force, you think how cool they are. You think they're called the Guardians. It's pretty badass.
Pretty badass.
Yeah. So to be able to actually work for the Air Force and then see Space Force come on and see the movements that they've made to ensure they do not make the same mistakes as other military establishments, it's been insane.
Yeah.
Like, I think I have a friend whose husband was in Space Force, and the first thing I think it was General Raymond did was he called all of the military spouses because he wanted to let them know that they were not like just sitting on the sidelines. They were the biggest support for their military members, and that he wanted to let them know that he appreciated them and they were family and they would be engaged.
Yeah.
So it's just a huge transition in mental wellness and thoughtfulness to even just the military spouses.
Yeah. And the last time this happened was the spin out of the Air Force from the U.S. Army Air Corps, right?
Yep.
So it doesn't happen very often. Probably won't happen again for quite some time.
Nope.
It's got to be exciting. Where is Space Force located?
So they are, I think it's being protested. I know they were looking at Colorado Springs, and then they, I think, decided to go to Ohio or something. But it really got pushed hard that maybe they should be going to Colorado Springs. And I believe they should be going to Colorado Springs. I mean, you have your Air Force Academy, you have all Space Force, like, suppliers, developers, like, you just have this awesome environment. I think I should go to Colorado Springs.
Yeah.
Or come to
NORAD.
Ogden.
It's already there.
Yeah, exactly. So much.
So with Space Force, the technology is going to be quite a bit different. Have you guys had any Space Force folks through Catalyst Campus?
So we actually focus on Space Force at the Colorado Springs location.
Okay.
So we do engage our Space Force. We do talk methodologies. It's so interesting in the technology that they ran forward with. One being a ring for their commanders to identify if they were sleeping enough, if they're healthy. I mean, just the commitment to ensuring the health of their war fighters is insane. And then you get this whole opportunity of starting new and developing new. And that, I mean, to engineers and scientists, that's the exciting part. To be part of something so new that hasn't been, the bureaucracy hasn't been added, it hasn't been tainted.
Yeah.
So
it's a startup.
Yep. It is a
which again,
startup.
Doesn't happen very often.
No.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Colorado Springs location. Catalyst Campus has got a few locations, right?
Yep. So we're downtown Ogden, Colorado Springs, and Maryland. So lots of movement. We're adding more locations. I mean, there's states that reach out to us because they want us to engage with their community. When we do, like out of Colorado Springs, based off the data from the time we started our accelerators and we're at 10 now, we've made an economic impact of 600 million in downtown Colorado Springs, an area that was pretty rough, turned into like this massive like tech establishment. And it was all around this little tech hub of Catalyst Campus, who just took the opportunity to go down there and see what happened.
Yeah, and it's worked out beautifully. And for organizations like Catalyst Campus, it's important to show the end result, right?
Yes.
Whatever KPI you want, but ultimately it's like economic impact.
Yep. And for me, it's a little different. Coming from the Air Force, I want technology in the warfighter's hands. That's my measure of success.
Yeah. And those will be pretty easy to track because it's like, yes, we will incorporate that.
Yep.
No, we won't.
Yep.
And that would probably result in, once the yes happens, more jobs would be my guess.
Yep. And you're already seeing the economic growth around Hill Air Force Base has doubled in the last year because of the ground-based strategic deterrent.
Yeah.
Like, it's just booming. I mean, the whole area, how many people are coming from across the nation to come and work with this program, be a sub or a contractor to them even. It's insane.
Yeah. It's quite the location. Ogden, Hill Air Force Base, we were talking a little bit before. It's just a delightful place.
Yeah.
Really cool architecture.
Yeah, really historical. Something that I love about it is their community. Their sense of community is so amazing. I mean, they host some of the best events. They just come together as a community so well. And I think that's what people want. When you see people coming to Northrop, when you see people coming to Hill Air Force Base, they want that sense of community. They just up and left their previous community. And to be able to have that, I love Ogden. And you see this tech boom coming, and it's like, it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful to watch. And you're right, our architecture is historical. It's beautiful. Ogden High, the forestry building that we're looking at. Our current building has this big mural. It used to be an alleyway, 5-cent cigars. So it must be old if it says 5-cent cigars.
Oh, yeah.
But beautiful, just absolutely gorgeous architecture.
Yeah. I love it. So we've mentioned a few big names that they ultimately started as startups. So we've got like Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop, Raytheon, a lot more, right? They're pretty big and bureaucratic and industrial in their own rights. How do they factor into more of like, because they kind of sit in the middle, it seems like to me. How do they work with you guys and the smaller, more nimble entrepreneurial ecosystem versus like the end result, D.O.D.?
So we work directly with the D.O.D. We don't have to go through the middleman of Northrop, Lockheed, or anybody. We work directly with the D.O.D. to engage modern capabilities. We do have Northrop here, who's a massive entity for a large program, and they have been engaged. They are interested in like trying to integrate some of the small businesses. BAE integrated some of the small businesses. So we give them every chance to build out a contracting vehicle with whoever they want to go with. And the nice thing about like BAE is they're smaller. Northrop's a little intimidating. They're bigger. Everybody thinks they just want to steal your IP. They're actually engaged with small businesses because they want to see how they do.
Yeah.
They want to see if they have a technology that's up and coming. They're trying to identify like there's a huge movement in the DoD, and it's for a reason. So we better start looking at it too. We engage with everybody we can in the Ogden area.
Very cool. Yeah, it'd be funny to have a Northrop employee that was whenever they were founded 80 years ago versus one today.
Gosh. I know.
You're like, oh yeah, we were always talking about this weird bureaucracy and it sucked and we were just fast and nimble, and then the one today is like, that's us now.
Yep. Yep. And then you actually look at, so one of the success stories out of Hill Air Force Base is Keomac. It was a company that was founded by a A-10 pilot, Keo, and ended up being this like massive success at sustaining like A-10 technology. So it just, you see these like few companies, but there's more now, especially now. We have Defense Unicorn, Stark Wolf, Otimo, Second Front, Revicom, like all of these companies that are just driving innovation into the DoD faster than they've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because they're all like, majority of them end up starting from a DoD employee.
Yeah.
That's like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
There's a better way.
Yeah. And even if you, let's say you graduate from the Air Force Academy and fly A-10s, and you do a 20-year career, you're like 45.
Yep.
You still have plenty of tread on the tires.
Yeah.
But you can get out at any point.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a pretty big advantage to have been on the inside
Yes.
and then be able to live in both worlds.
Absolutely. And you see that so much. You see people separating from the DoD, whether they're in the innovation realm or they're a pilot or they are a maintainer. They're walking away with so much knowledge. I mean, they're subject matter experts in their field. And those are the people you want to see start small businesses or integrate into other companies to help drive them faster.
Yeah. That's got to be really fun to watch because you can get that person with the subject matter expert, get a startup person that's never been on that side and just commingle them and watch it work out. Very cool. And then for folks that want to get involved in any number of ways, just supporting, being in a cohort boot camp, what's the best way?
So a couple ways. If we're opening up our next accelerator cohorts application process. So apply for, if you're a small business who wants to integrate into the DoD, apply for the open application. And then if you are a company who wants to help small businesses and the DoD, you can come and help us by either sponsoring an event, be a part of the event, come and be a part and talk to the DoD and see what they're going through. I think there's been this whole idea that everything that happens in the DoD is behind a fence. Those conversations are off base. To the point, I mean, we just got $20 million for a classified environment in downtown Ogden. That is how important it is to have those conversations off base. So I would say I'm on LinkedIn. We have a Facebook page, LinkedIn page, website, like Catalyst Campus Ogden. We are here to support our community.
Very cool. You have another little project, not little, apologies. It's way awesome.
Yeah.
Mother Hackers.
Yes.
What is that?
So talking about some of the barriers to entry in the DoD, my friend and I, so Michaela Fato and I, we decided we were going to start this whole podcast and bring on some of the most badass women that we know. And then men who are allies to women and want to help them get to where they need to be, help them advance in their career. So we just kicked it off. We have gotten a huge amount of interest from a lot of the people we didn't even imagine ever speaking on our podcast. And then we've also gotten old software officers, CEOs reaching out to us wanting to engage and be a part of it because they see there's a story there. There's a story for every woman that's been in the DoD, active duty or civilian, there's a story. And it's not to kind of like bash the DoD, it's to just identify those barriers and help remove them. And that's it. Mm-hmm. Like we just want to lower the barriers of entry, ensure that women have potential to be successful wherever they go. And that's what we're doing.
And you've got all the knowledge in your brains and all you have to do is talk into a microphone and book the guest.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
All right, well, let us know how we can support that. I'm sure you guys will surpass us in little or no time, and we'll be asking you for advice on how to podcast.
We have over 150 listens. We were stoked.
That's
we're
awesome.
Off our first one, we're like, people want to listen to us?
Absolutely. All right, very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Aniza, and congrats on everything you guys are doing up there. It'll be fun to watch how that ecosystem evolves.
Thank you. Thank you.